So I've not done a video for a little while, but I've got these oil drums, these battered oil drums on the bench ready for a customer. So I just thought I'd show you how I paint and weather these. These are the gamer version, they're 20 mils high, and that's the 00, which are 12 mils. And there's also an O version, an O scale as well. They're on the website, and I'll put the link down the bottom there. It's easier to handle these if they're stuck on a card, so I'm going to use a piece of foam core, double-sided tape, and I'll just tap them on there, and they're quite easy to sort of take off when I've finished. You can use a stick or just hold them in your hands if it's easier that way, but I just find it easier to put them on the board. Try and space them out so I can get the paint all around them. That's it. And now these are obviously printed in grey resin, but I'm going to prime them in black, and then oddly enough paint them in grey afterwards. So it seems like a bit of an odd step to paint in one colour then change it back to the original, but one of the reasons is that the black would add sort of shading and shadows. So you'll see in a minute when I paint it in its top colour. One of the reasons for that. But obviously with black I can see where I've gone painted over the grey resin, so it's quite obvious. And we're going to use Model Air. Model Air, as you probably know, doesn't need any mixing when it goes into the gum. Use it straight out of the bottle. Now if we paint these from a sort of top-down angle, some of the paint won't go underneath the detail, like the rim and around the detail around the bands around the middle of the drums, and the good thing about that is that creates like a false shadow. That's one of the problems with any scale modelling, is that that shadow is missing, and that's what makes things look like models. So you can see just very slightly that it is there's like a shadow underneath. And then to add the rust, we're going to use oil brush, and this is an oil paint. These are already pre-mixed. There's loads of colours. This come in a kit. Again, I'll put the link down the bottom for this. The brush that comes with it is going to be too big for what we need, so I'm just going to put a little bit on the side there, and then we'll use a smaller brush. Depends on what size model you're working on. Depends on what size brush. This says size 2, but whatever that means, I don't know. And then we're just going to dot in very, very gently tiny amounts of the first rust colour that we're going to use, and we can just dot that around in the places where you think rust would be showing. And then we need to let that dry. I normally wait sort of 10-15 minutes, and it just sort of sets in a little bit. And then we're going to use a very damp brush. This is damped with thinners, and then we're just going to drag down really, really gently. And that creates the first part of the rust streak. Now the wetter your brush, as you'll see in a minute, the more the rust will sort of blend into your model. So it will that's it. It goes weaker there. Just another one. The brush is slightly drier on this one. It creates these streaks. Keep your brush clean in the thinner, otherwise you'll start transferring rust from one part to another, and you don't necessarily want that. If you want to enhance your rust, you can add a deeper colour. This is just dark brown, again from the same range, just a tiny amount. And then this bit, so the darker rust, generally in the middle of a rust patch, wouldn't run as much as the lighter colours. So you'd want to go a little bit gentler on this and drag down just ever so slightly less. just creates a little sort of low light in the middle of it. And then my favourite weathering powder, this is the Humbrol one, Dark Earth. I'm just going to use this around the bottom, just generally to make it look like it's been sat in a field, and the rust and the mud and the rain has splashed up. It just made it a bit dirty around the bottom. Depends on the terrain, you can use different colours. This is just a weathering powder that I like. It seems to be quite a nice general purpose one. Now my weathering powders are, I use the centre of the palette of my paint palette for the weathering powders, and there's all different shades in there, so I've got different shades of rust and soot, and I can just mix a bit from time to time and just vary the shade ever so slightly. A little bit more on there. It's surprising how much how little weathering powder you really need. So I wouldn't use it straight from the pot, just to put some on the brush and brush it off. Bit on the top there, just to add it, make it look a bit more weathered and dirty and beat up. Good thing about these drums is obviously they're old and battered, so they haven't got to be too precise on what we do. So once that's all done, we need to seal everything in, the weathering powders and the oils, and we're just going to use a satin varnish for that. And then finishing touch would be the AK. This is axle grease, and this dries to a sort of a gloss finish. So this goes on top and it gives that a wet effect. And that's probably about it. Thanks for watching. Speak soon.